Hello, ocean people. I'm Brent Durand. Today, we are going to compare the Insta360 Ace Pro versus the DJI Osmo Action 4. Which one's better for underwater video? Both of these cameras have received rave reviews for low light performance. And as we know, when we're scuba diving, we have less ambient light available underwater than we do on the surface. But for this review, I'm going to focus on recreational scuba diving depths and the underwater video footage that both of these cameras will produce. So we are not going to focus on night diving, where the Ace Pro's pure video really stands out as well. And we're not going to focus on deep technical diving, where you need to be certified for technical diving to do that, which I'm not. Some people are, some are not, but I digress. We're really going to focus on regular, everyday underwater video for you guys and for average scuba divers. So we're going to take a look at camera features. We are going to look at operation of each camera in the dive housing. And we're going to look at overall image quality, including real-time color correction, dynamic range, and clarity of the image. Before we begin, I need to point out that Insta360 sent me the Ace Pro, and I do get to keep it. So I've used that camera for this comparison and some other reviews you'll find on my YouTube channel, so check those out. I have been reviewing action cameras since, I believe, the GoPro Hero 3, so a lot of information published on these cameras, and it's been fun to watch them progress camera model after camera model, and I'm very excited to show you guys the footage from the Ace Pro because I think it makes significant leaps, and compare the underwater video with the Osmo Action 4. The best way to do that is to set up each camera as closely as possible to the other, put the footage on the screen, and let you guys take a look and you decide which you like best for your underwater video. Does that sound good? Let's do it. In looking at these cameras, you can tell the Ace Pro is a little bit larger than the Action 4, and both of them have a 1/1.3 inch sensor. And the sensor size is similar to prosumer cameras, where the larger sensor should enable the camera to see more light and bring more light onto the sensor. It should enable higher dynamic range of the scene, and it should produce better color, especially in our underwater video. The Ace Pro's lens was co-engineered by Leica. Not sure if you can see that right there. But suffice it to say that Leica is extremely well respected in the photography and optical imaging communities. So we expect great footage coming from the Ace Pro with this lens, and you'll see that in just a second. Beyond that, the Ace Pro's lens is also wider at f2.6 instead of f2.8 like we see on the Action 4. It's a subtle difference, but should let more light into the camera, creating better low light performance. The Ace Pro features a brand new 5nm AI chip, and that creates incredible processing power combined with really innovative AI features that are great for underwater video. In particular, we look at real-time color correction, frame by frame, as the image is being recorded to the sensor. So let's pause for a second there. The computer is doing color correction in real time and recording it to the camera. So what this means is you can take the footage right from camera and share it on social media or do whatever you want to do. You don't need to worry about running it through third-party apps and working on white balance and other color correction. You could, and you'll probably improve the results by doing so, but you don't need to if you're a casual shooter for underwater video. So that is huge. This processing power also runs some of the other impressive features of the camera, like active HDR video, which keeps the footage stable even while recording HDR video. And that doesn't hold up so well in a lot of other action cameras. And in addition, it enables a pure video mode for low light performance. Again, we're not going to really test that in this video because we're working with regular lighting situations scuba diving, but just know the camera can do all three of those things at once: real-time color correction, active HDR, and pure video low light enhancement and low light performance. Note that in this review, I'm going to share footage straight out of camera and will not be shooting flat color profiles or anything meant for post-processing. So I will not be using free-frame video on the Ace Pro and will not be using D-Log-M, a flat color profile, on the OA4. We're going to shoot straight out of camera because I think that that's how most of us scuba divers want to use these cameras. We want the simplicity, and once you get to the point where you're shooting flat color profiles and spending the time on color grading, you know exactly what you want from those cameras anyways. So we're going to focus on keeping it simple, keeping it practical, and looking at those everyday scuba diving results. But because there's always an exception, I will spend just a minute to show you how to use Insta360's app to play with Aquavision 2.0 and adjust that color correction in post, which is very easy, and also how to do the equivalent color corrections in the DJI app. So at least you get a preview of how those apps work for color correction. So what else should we mention here? 3 things, I think. 1, the Ace Pro shoots 48 megapixel still images, and the Action 4 shoots 12 megapixel still images. Both cameras have a magnetic mount. You can't use it inside of the dive housing because we've got the regular twist tab mount, but when it's outside of the housing, you can quickly use that magnetic mount to pop the camera from helmet mount to suction cup mount to selfie stick or anything like that. Finally, the Ace Pro has a huge 2.4-inch LCD screen. It's bright and easy to see underwater, and then it also flips up when you're outside of the housing. So if you're shooting selfie video or something like that, you can see what you're shooting and see yourself. If you have any more questions on the camera features, leave them in the comments below, and I'm happy to answer. Now let's talk about operating both cameras underwater in their respective underwater housings or dive cases. And as you know or are about to learn, we have no access to the touchscreen underwater, so we rely on the physical buttons and pre-programming settings. Now, in terms of ergonomics, both cameras have a shutter button on the top, and they have a power button and a mode button on the side. Both cameras have another feature called quick capture, and what that does is if the camera is asleep or turned off, you push that shutter button, the camera will wake up and immediately start recording video. You can program it to record photos or do other modes, but by default it's video, and I recommend leaving it that way. But underwater, we often want our screen to time out to save battery. So when it is out and you see that action, you simply push the shutter button and start recording. So it's a really great feature underwater when we're locked into our dive housing and can't always switch batteries all the time. In terms of setup, you do need to download the app for each camera, either the Insta360 app or the DJI app, and that will update the firmware. And after that, then you're good to go and start shooting. So if you want simplicity, take the camera out with the default settings and off you go, you can start shooting. But for those who want a little more control but still simplicity, I recommend configuring a custom preset with the ideal settings for the underwater scene you're shooting. One of the nice things about both of these cameras is that you can configure these custom presets and then use the side button to quick switch between those presets. So you can create one preset with your basic settings and leave it there and shoot all day with that. Or if you're a more advanced shooter, you can set up several different presets and you can toggle through them using the quick switch function. So when we're using the dive housing and we're underwater, these custom presets and the ability to create them and navigate through them easily and quickly is huge. So thank you to both manufacturers for setting the cameras up this way. Setting up the quick switch menu is pretty much the same on both cameras. So I've linked right here to my dedicated Insta360 Ace Pro tutorial where I go in depth on how to set up custom presets and also how to configure the quick switch menu. So if you're interested in more advanced shooting with custom settings, be sure to check that out. Okay, are you still with me? Now let's talk about how I configured both cameras to make sure we could do a fair comparison between the Insta360 Ace Pro and the DJI Osmo Action 4 for underwater video. The goal, as you can imagine, was to make sure we were shooting at equivalent settings and using as much default settings as possible because, again, we're not going to be doing any color correction. Simplicity was the name of the game because I feel most of us scuba divers want that simplicity out of our action camera, and most of us use these cameras for that simplicity. Note that the only editing I did do was trimming clips, clipping the front and the end just to get rid of the handles or the wasted space on those clips. But aside from that, everything you're seeing is straight out of camera with these settings. On the Ace Pro, I configured two custom presets. The first is 4K resolution and 30 frames per second, which automatically enables HDR video. That stands for high dynamic range and effectively produces more data and better image quality in the shadows and the highlights of the image. So you could say the camera records an underexposed and an overexposed video and then combines them in real time to create that HDR video that you're seeing when you review the footage. That's automatically enabled at 30 frames per second and below. For the second preset, I shot at 4K and 60 frames per second, which is a widely regarded standard setting for underwater video because you can create 50% slow motion during post-processing. Note that on the Ace Pro, HDR video is turned off once you pass 30 frames per second, so it's technically not on at 60 frames per second. On the Action 4, I left the camera in basic mode and with the default efficiency HEVC video compression. If you take a look at the manual, you'll see that DJI says that the Action 4 is always shooting HDR video. So regardless of the frame rate, it's shooting that high dynamic range video, so there's no setting to adjust there for an equal comparison. I left the field of view wide and the image stabilization on default, and just like with the Ace Pro, my second preset was 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. And in case you've been wondering how I shot the side-by-side comparison and why I've been holding this in front of me the whole time, this was my rig. This is how I shot both videos side-by-side. It's an ultralight tray and handle system, and a lot of people actually hold them like this, but I kind of like to hold it upside down because I can get the cameras more in front of my face. And this gave me basically the same perspective on the exact same shots, the exact same times, everything with both cameras during the shoot. So let's head to Monterey and let's check out some of this underwater video footage finally. Let's open this up in a few feet of water above the sand. The Ace Pro is on the left and the Osmo Action 4 is on the right. I'd say color is subject to interpretation here. We're still shallow here, starting the dive, but look at the nice brown color in the kelp on the left and the skin tones around my mask. The Ace Pro also has much more contrast, but also much more detail in the shadows. Here's a quick look at backlit kelp with sunrays. At first glance, these clips look really close since the color is similar, but notice how much definition there is in the Ace Pro footage, not just with the subjects, but with the background. This clip is interesting because you can see that the Ace Pro missed white balance, but just wait for it right about here. You'll see that it recalibrates in an instant and has great color, and again, a lot more definition than in the footage we're seeing from the Action 4. Here's another example of clarity and definition we see with the Ace Pro in fairly shallow water. The color correction here is really bringing out the pink coralline algae and the red Corynactis, plus a nice brown color of the perch. And we're back in the shallows again, and I think that the Action 4 did the better job on the color in this kelp and the bright shallow sun rays, but what do you all think? At this point in the dive, I've descended significantly deeper down to about 50 feet or 16 meters, and we're hanging out with some sea lions. I'm liking the color of the Action 4 down here right now. But notice here how once we have some white in the frame, the Ace Pro comes back with really nice color correction and definition, both in the foreground and the background of the frame. I think you can really see it in the shot. Finally, we've got another buzz by from a sea lion here, and both cameras are holding their color at this depth while making these dramatic changes in composition and direction to the sun following the sea lion. And notice the water surface and the ripples on the surface of water in this more shallow backlit shot. I think we're starting to see, and in this shot too, just that fantastic dynamic range, and seeing that the range does excel in the Ace Pro in comparison to the Action 4, at least in my opinion. And yes, one more selfie, but this one's to show my skin tones and color on the surface at the end of the dive. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments. I also shot some footage at 60 frames per second, but it looked very similar to the footage we just saw at 30 frames per second. So to make it different, what I will do now is show some of the footage shot at 4K 30, but with artificial 4300 lumen video lights. A lot of us use artificial lighting underwater for close subjects with our underwater video. So let's compare the results from both cameras using those lights. Here we're seeing great color and definition from the Ace Pro again with these video lights, but I'm also noticing how well that active HDR stabilizes the scene without any of the jitters we're seeing in the Action 4 footage on the right. This is another great example of that active HDR stabilization, really holding the video stable while I'm drifting back and forth in the surge. You can see how much surge is here in the kelp fronds up in the upper left of the frame. And one last shot with some vibrant color produced by those video lights. I think the more color in the frame, the better the Ace Pro's underwater color correction. Pretty impressive, right? I am blown away by the image quality and that real-time color correction that the Ace Pro displays. We saw it right there in the footage. It's good enough to share, but if you did want to tweak with some color correction during editing, let's take a quick look at both the Ace Pro app and the DJI app to see how you would do that. All right, here I've opened up the Insta360 app on my phone and I've connected my camera and I'm in the album area so I can see all of my photos and videos. So let's take a look at maybe this clip. And here we go, we can see it starting to play. And editing is very easy. You just go like this and check out Aquavision 2.0, tap that, and this adjusts that in-camera frame-by-frame color correction, the intensity, how much you want that effect to take place, and then the tone, so lighten, and that's a lot more red in the scene. You can see that, a lot bluer, a lot redder in the scene, and let's say you make it red, but you can adjust the intensity. So you can really customize the underwater video footage very easy with Aquavision 2.0, in addition to other types of editing and filters and adjustments that one might expect. Now I've opened up the DJI Mimo app, connected my camera, and I'm also viewing my album. So let's pick a video clip here. We can start to watch one of these underwater clips. I can hit the adjustment icon at the bottom. And now I've opened up the editing screen for adjusting my clip. And one of the things you'll notice is that DJI has Vivid Underwater. And this is a similar function to Aquavision 2.0 in that we can adjust the intensity of the underwater color correction. So bluer and a lot more reds. So you can really adjust that to what you feel is good. And then just like with the Ace Pro and the Insta360 app, you can create different filters or do some of your other editing as you see fit. And that's it. That's our underwater video comparison of the Insta360 Ace Pro and the DJI Osmo Action 4. So let me know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe if you want to see more reviews and more underwater video and underwater photo tutorials. And I will see you in the next video.